Thank you so much for joining us today. Listen, we are just so excited. We wanted to take some time to just share with you a little bit about Women with Grit. What is the story behind it? How do we get started with it? You know, I've got partner in crime here, Lee Willette.
Hey, what's going on?
And I'm Sherelle Lands, and we're just so excited about this concept called Women with Grit, where we interview just exceptional women within the community and around the world who are doing phenomenal things. So how do we get started with this concept, Lee?
Well, I think ultimately it was a reaction to COVID. We were literally working on a different concept that involved women and really helping women have the opportunities to progress in their careers, and we're really putting something together to do that. And we had all these people lined up to interview and to get information from, and
COVID happened.
And so
it changed life for everyone.
It did, and so for us, we were talking one day, and so we were talking about what we're doing, and I said, I'm thinking about doing this podcast, and I'm thinking about doing this, and you said, okay, let's do it. And so Women with Grit came.
There it is. Big on execution, we make it happen.
Yes, so it's been exciting.
Yes, it has. We've had just phenomenal guests even over the last year, and looking forward to all that's coming ahead. So how can they reach us?
They can reach us on YouTube, Exceptional Women with Grit. You can subscribe to our page. You can check out our Facebook page, Women with Grit, or you can go to our website, womenwithgrit.com.
That's it.
And the best way to catch us is Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Central Time, when Sherelle and I are live with our guests. And literally, I think the most exciting thing for me is what we talked about. We wanted to have a program that addressed that brought in women from around the world. So that's our globe here. We literally interview people in Bogota, Colombia, over in London, and then all over the United States as well. So that's been exciting. That's one of the benefits of COVID. Everybody's used to this virtual world, and nobody feels like they have to fly in to be live in the studio.
That's right. So hopefully you will join us live or catch the replay, right?
The replays, that's right. We have a bunch of replays, and I mean, if I were you, I would binge listen. People binge watch on Netflix, binge listen and watch Women with Grit. There've been some phenomenal interviews and some phenomenal tips that will help anyone. We have men and women that watch.
That's right.
And I think the tips that you get, the things that you learn from these women that are our guests will help anyone advance their careers, advance their lives, and just really live a full life and a happy life. And I think that's exciting.
Yes, I will agree 100%. So if you're interested, definitely join us, follow us, engage with us, like us, share it, all of those things. And if you know a phenomenal woman or a woman with grit that you would recommend being on the show, be sure that you write us on any one of those forums, and a member of our team will get back to you.
Yeah. And don't forget, if you have a product or service, a company that you want to promote or a cause, give us a shout. We're happy to do that. There is a cost, but it's not much. Not yet. So you better get in while it's cheap.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you. And so far, we'll see you online.
Talk to you later. Peace.
Bye. Well, good evening, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. We'd love to hear from you all. Welcome to Women with Grit. We're so excited that you have taken time out of your busy schedule to join and learn more about the stories of these amazing and insightful women that are joining us today. We are just so excited that you are on, taking time. So go ahead. We want to engage with you in the chat function. As you guys know, we love dialogue, and there's plenty of opportunities for you to get engaged with us right here on Women with Grit. So feel free to leave your name, city, state, or country that you are joining in from. We've got some faithful listeners that are over in South Korea and Colombia, we know. So we welcome you all, especially those here in the United States as well. So come on in the room. We invite you to grab your favorite drink, beverage, as well as your favorite snack. Grab a chair and come on in. If you know another phenomenal woman or woman with grit, it doesn't even have to be a woman, but invite them in the room. Don't share all this or take all this knowledge and keep it for yourself, because we are talking about a very important topic. We are talking about imposter syndrome tonight on today's show. So, yes, you want to make sure that you are in the room. So, we invite you to come on in and join with us in the chat. We want to make sure that we get a chance just to say hello to you as well. So, hey, Daz from New Jersey and Neff in Maryland, thank you all for joining. Nikki in Atlanta, thank you all. Got several more that are across the different feeds tonight. So, we thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join in tonight. So as you will see, my partner in crime is not here yet, but he's well on the way, and that's Lee Moulette. And he'll have a chance to come in and say hello to you all. But guess what? You guys know how we do it. We keep the party going. We keep the information flowing because you guys are here to hear from our amazing guests. And tonight, as we always do, we grace the stage with some amazing women. And we have Ebonei, and she is going to come on stage in just a minute. So I want to make sure that you guys have an opportunity to connect with her as well. But before we do that, we want to make sure we take an opportunity to thank our sponsors. So again, thetableaction.org. If you haven't had an opportunity to check out the table is really doing some phenomenal things to transform diversity and inclusion, specifically in the Nashville area. Talking about really bringing resources to the hands of those that actually need, and being able to create a conversation by bringing the right players, just as the name implies, to the table. So check out thetableaction.org when you have an opportunity. And of course, Vision Strategy Management, where we truly believe in building businesses and teams who succeed. So this is the time of year. If you haven't put in place your strategy for 2023, you are behind the curve, right? We don't want to just start the year off in full speed. We want to have the opportunity to build up the momentum to get there. So if you haven't had an opportunity to do that, go ahead and do that as well. So again, as you all are joining in, we thank you all. Again, go ahead and leave your name, city, and state where you're joining in. Hi, Sonia. Thank you for joining in. Hi, Eve. Thank you for joining in as well. But again, let me go ahead and give you guys some of the background for this another amazing guest that will grace the stage here shortly, okay? So Ebonei Genus is assertive and passionate about people and technology. She is the IBM Consulting America's leader in early professional strategy and programs leader. She provides HR thought leadership while working closely with senior business leaders. She shapes and executes early professional hire strategies related to talent, including demand, skills, and engagement, recruiting, diversity, and inclusion, and building organizational capabilities, and is responsible for ensuring the experience in a high-touch and signature environment. Prior to this, she started off her career in technology and has worked with clients within the US and internationally to help solve their most challenging business problems. She enjoys photography. She is also an avid runner, running up to at least 18 miles each week. She provides board and council leadership and extends her time, talent, and treasure to the underserved minority communities impacted by poverty abuse. She has a son named Javon, which is one of her proudest accomplishments, who is also an aerospace engineer for Northrop Grumman. So take an opportunity. I want to make sure that you guys have an opportunity to connect with Ebonei as I bring her to the stage. So good evening, Ebonei. How are you?
Good evening, Sherelle. I love the energy. Thank you so much for having me, both you and Lee, on the show. I'm really, truly excited tonight to talk about this special topic and share my journey of grit as a woman, especially as a Black woman of Caribbean heritage who has really, experienced imposter syndrome and had to come to an understanding of what it was and truly embrace it versus see it as something negative and then slay it. So thanks again for having me.
So excited to have you. This is such an important topic. You know, I read a statistic that at least 70% of individuals at some point in their life experience imposter syndrome, and it is very prevalent, especially in the higher or upper echelon communities as well. So, succeeding as an executive woman takes real grit, and we'd love to start our show just by understanding what is your story.
Sure. So a little bit about me and where I come from. I come from a family of what I call educators. My great great grandmother was a teacher. My grandmother and my aunts were teachers and principals. But overall, I come from a family who really believed in demonstrating excellence in everything you do. So, although I grew up in Miami, Florida, which is where I am now, I spent many wonderful summers in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, with my grandmother
Love
and
it.
a couple of aunts who they were just so confident. They were well spoken, well educated, and well respected by the community. And so they really helped to shape me into the woman that I am today. And when I think back about my childhood, also my mom was the pivot, was the pillar of our family. And she really raised my brother and myself for most of my childhood. I was a latchkey kid. And for those of you who don't know what a latchkey kid is, it's, a kid in school that wears a key around their neck because most likely there would be no one there, to let me in when I got home. And
Mm,
so that built this sense of independence from a very, very young age.
mm,
What's interesting is the elementary school I remember attending, it was predominantly white. And
mhm.
I really struggled to find my own voice among people who didn't look like me.
Yeah.
And that was hard, right? Because when people don't look like you wonder who you really are. And in certain cases, you even take on some of the traits of those individuals. But my mom kept me busy, right? I mean, she had me involved in church events, social groups for women. She encouraged my musical talents of singing. Though what really inspired me, and you're gonna laugh, was my first love that I met when I was 7.
Hmm.
And, if you take a look at that picture I sent you, some of you are thinking, okay, this is going to be a guy or some boy that you met in the 7th grade. But actually, my first love was a brand new IBM desktop computer.
Mm,
Took my first computer education class. I learned how to code, and I was just smitten. You know,
mm,
um, although I was the youngest in that class, I really had an appreciation for solving problems. And just the fact that you could use a machine that looked like a television, and a keyboard to create pictures and games. My first game was Pong and
yeah.
applications and artificial intelligence. We didn't call it that back then, but it was just like a whole new world opened up for me.
Mm.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so when you think about your journey, what do you remember most about it, especially being technical?
Yeah, besides the fact that I knew at a young age that my destiny was going to involve technology in some way, shape, or form,
Mm,
I think, if I think back to my college years, specifically my junior year at Florida State University, I remember attending my first college fair. And I was
mhm,
apprehensive, but I was confident, right? I had a great GPA, relevant work experience. Professors really admired my work and referred me. So I had my resume, I was ready. I put it on gray stone paper to make sure I was delineating myself from other people on white paper. And I searched for, I kid you not, I searched for the IBM booth. And I
mm,
had to talk with the hiring manager. She loved my resume. And she said, you know what? Just send me your SAT results and I'll be in contact with you. So I'm leaving there. I'm feeling pretty confident and my dream is coming true.
mm,
Sometimes God has other plans for you. And so I sent her the scores and then I waited.
mhm,
A week went by, nothing. 2 weeks went by, nothing.
Mm.
So I remember gathering up all the courage that I could, right? Gave her a call. And
Mhm.
when she spoke, she actually remembered me. So I said, oh, yeah, this is great. It's a good sign. She got my scores. And she said, even, yeah, your resume is great. You have relevant work experience. However, your SAT scores weren't good enough to be considered.
Mm.
And for me, there are these pivotal moments in your life when things happen and they impact you at your core. And this
That's
was
right.
one of them, right? Because for me, in that moment, my dream died. And
Mm.
for many weeks, I walked around feeling that IBM, right? This thing that was going to be my legacy, that I knew I was going to do something there at the age of 7, IBM didn't want me.
Mm.
And most of us, or some of us, know that feeling of not being wanted or not feeling qualified, not being chosen. No matter how hard you tried, you just weren't good enough. And that's the space that I was in.
Mm. That is pretty deep.
Yeah, I grappled with that for a long time until PricewaterhouseCoopers came calling and said, hey, forget about your SAT scores. We see potential in you. We're going to go ahead and take you on.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that something? One man's rejection becomes another man or woman's treasure, right?
That's right. That's what they say.
Yeah. So tell us what happened next. I mean, so when did you and how did you recognize that you have or had an imposter syndrome?
Wow. Well, what happened next was, I think it definitely had to fold into my destiny. And I'm just going to say it, God's purpose for me.
Yeah.
Because something really happens, like you mentioned about being another man's treasure. Something happens to you when someone believes in you after someone else doesn't. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You work extra hard to prove to people that they were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. And I worked my butt off at PricewaterhouseCoopers for 3 years. And interestingly enough, the firm decided to sell its consulting services to, of all people, IBM.
IBM.
Yeah.
Little guy. Yeah.
So talk about really destiny fulfilling itself, but just not that path, right?
Right. Yeah.
That I was going to take. And what was so interesting about when that acquisition happened, I was at the height of my career at PwC.
Mm.
That year, I was rated the highest rating that you could receive. And because of that, and the acquisition, the terms of the acquisition, IBM gave me 1,600 shares of IBM stock options at $60.49. I remember that. And, I just said, wow, thank you. Thank you, Jesus.
Right.
All that
Yeah,
extra
God.
hard work paid off. And you would think that based on getting that far, based on my skills, leading work streams, continuing to build my career, that I would be confident, right, in my ability to move forward. But I wasn't.
Mm.
Um, I perpetually, and I still do, I suffer from perpetual imposter syndrome.
Mm. And you know something, I'm listening to you speak and I'm listening to you in terms of your story, even though you still had the dream of getting to IBM, God took you on a different course to get there. And the question would become, the amount of shares that you received, you likely wouldn't have gotten had you got there on your own or gotten there through your route. So let's delve into it because I know we've been using the term loosely, imposter syndrome, and sometimes it might sound like some kind of disease, right? What, what exactly is it? Can you define that for our listeners and our viewers? What would you say, and how would you define imposter syndrome?
Sure. So this has been a hot topic, I would say, for the past maybe 2 to 3 years. I think it's fully
Yeah.
maturing, at this point. But for those of you who aren't familiar with the term imposter syndrome, which sometimes you'll also hear it referred to as imposter phenomenon, it was first observed by a doctor, psychologist, or doctor of psychology, Dr. Pauline Clark, as she went through her clinical appointments. And so the term really is defined as having these intense feelings that your accomplishments are undeserved and and that you didn't earn them. And so what happens is it causes you to worry that you'll be exposed, that you really don't know what you're doing, right? You'll be exposed as a fraud, a pretender, or as the term implies, an imposter, someone who really doesn't belong there. And for me, it led to a lot of emotional stress, right? And in some cases, even prevented me from being as effective in the workplace, because as you're trying to go up in your career or become promoted in your career, and you're getting into these leadership positions, and you're responsible for different areas, and some areas you have experience in, and some areas you don't, you start to question your ability. And so I would constantly worry or ask myself, and I'm going to take it into race and gender, right?
Yeah.
I would constantly ask myself, am I really an exceptional person, right? Am I really an intelligent individual, or am I a token Black? Did I get my roles because I was African American? Back in the day, did PricewaterhouseCoopers really choose me because of what I did in college, or was I a poster child for affirmative action? Right? Should I even apply for leadership roles, right? Or am I that underrepresented minority that companies would actually get to tick off two boxes, right? She's Black and she's female. Or is it really my skills and what I bring to the table? I often think about my speech, my demeanor. How should I dress? How should I wear my hair today? Do I ever come across as the angry Black woman, right, in meetings as compared to other people? And I'm very cognizant of making sure that I don't. And so there's this pressure, especially with, many times I was the only female or Black person on the team. And so when you're in that position, once again, you don't see others like you.
Yeah.
You tend to focus on you being that outlier, that person on the outside. And should you really be where you are today, even though you know that you're capable and you have proof to show it?
Mm-hmm. That is a mouthful. When I tell you it is a mouthful, I want to check in with our viewers. Like, you guys, does this resonate? I can think about the aspects and exactly like what you're saying in the moments where you are either the only African American or Black, as well as woman. And then if you tack on young, right, in the space of technology, which is predominantly, Caucasian and male. But it's so much. But I want to make sure we get, so Lee's in the room. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Lee in. Hey, Lee.
Hello. Hey, how are you all?
Good. How about yourself?
Great. Good to see you. So is Ebonei, is that correct?
Hi, Lee. Yes, you said it right. Ebonei.
Okay, good. Pat myself on the back. Good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
We are having such a phenomenal conversation, Lee.
Yes, you are.
Like grab some popcorn.
Right. I've been listening in while I was in traffic and all that stuff. So phenomenal.
Yes. We were just getting into it, and I would love for us to be able to go deeper. And when we say go deeper, tell us, what can our viewers do about this? Anything that you can leave in terms of quick statistics on technology or imposter syndrome. Let's go a little bit deeper in that, if you don't mind.
Sure. So one of the things that I've learned in my research and in understanding myself and how to cope with it is that the same things or criteria that may have helped to get me opportunities from a career or just an overall professional perspective, those are the same things that triggered my imposter syndrome, right? My race and my gender. So a couple of statistics for the audience, just to get an understanding of how this impacts Black women and technology. So the National Center of Women in Information Technology, they stated that about 25% of women work in IT. And of that 25%, only 3% are Black women. So imagine if you have 100 women in total working in IT, only 3 of them are Black.
Black.
So I won't get into the need for us to bring more diverse, Black women into the technology field, but just to give you a feel for how underrepresented we currently are. And then McKinsey and Company, they performed a study, and I believe it showed that women in tech, predominantly Black women, we have higher chances of developing imposter syndrome due to the fact that we of our race and our gender combination. And then you mentioned the 70% of people experiencing imposterism at some point in their lives. What's interesting is when it comes to those people, if they are in the technology field, 58% of them feel like they are imposters, right? They don't belong there. They
Interesting.
haven't earned the right to be there. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So if we talk about, do we have some time to get into me sharing some tips on how I overcame, or I should say, because I don't think you ever overcome it. I think
Yeah.
that you manage it.
So how about we do this? How about because we're getting close to time on break, and this is just so good. And I want to make sure that we get an opportunity to check in with Lee. So we're going to pull you back, give
Okay.
our audience an opportunity to stew on some of those statistics that have already been mentioned. 70% actually suffer or experience it at some point in time in their lives. You mentioned 58% of them being in technology feel like they're imposters. Only 3% of individuals that are in IT. If you're in IT or you have a question specifically, feel free to leave it in the chat function. We want to connect with you. We're going to give you a moment just to grab some water. I'm going to check in with Lee and we'll bring you back up. How's that sound?
That sounds fantastic. I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Hey, Lee, how are you?
Hey, Sherelle. I'm great. Thanks. How about you?
Wonderful. Man, it's been
Good.
a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. You look different than a text message.
I know, right? I know. It's been an interesting year, but this is such a very important topic and conversation to
Yeah.
have,
Yes.
and I'm so glad that Ebonei is definitely exploring it and delving into it, not only in IT, but when we talk about the women that we bring across the stage and how, we've heard it a couple of times in some other instances. So I'm
Right.
excited about the conversation.
Yeah, because I remember one of our past guests, Lauren Ladd. She talked
Mhm.
about it and talked
Did.
about how she learned from the women that were part of Women with Grit, that were speakers. She
Mhm.
learned from them how to deal with different things like that. So I think today's topic, really hitting it head on with Ebonei, is even better, because people, any questions that people have, they have someone that is not afraid to discuss it with them. So
That's right. So we
yeah.
invite you all to engage in the chat. We see some of your questions coming in. We will be sure to bring those on stage for Ebonei to address. But if you have dealt with imposter syndrome, you've got questions, you know someone who could benefit from this, feel free to share this so that they have this information. This is why, we definitely want to do this. But as you are joining in, feel free to leave your name, city, and state that you are joining in from. We just want to say hello to you and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on Exceptional Women with Grit tonight. You can always catch us here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Standard, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, Facebook, and we are going to LinkedIn next. So we've got some expansion
Yes.
stuff coming. We've got some podcast stuff coming. We've got some stuff that we put down and we're picking back up. Life has a way of sending us through different spaces and journeys, but yet we are here where we need to be at the appointed and the right time. So before we dig in, Lee, who do we have to thank tonight? We talked about the table action already, doing some
Yeah, I heard
amazing
the
things.
table. I heard about vision strategy management.
Yes.
I think that's it for now, unless I'm missing somebody.
We've got day business services as well in
Okay,
terms of
David.
business. Yep, day business
Yes.
services who are doing some amazing things. And if you guys know of a phenomenal woman or a woman with grit that you feel we should grace the stage with, please feel free to reach out to us on any one of our platforms, and a member of our team will get back to you.
Yes, we will. Looking forward to it.
So we're ready to bring Ebonei back up.
Let's do it. I was looking for my water, but I think I rushed up here and didn't grab it, so I'm good.
Well, welcome back to the stage. Thank you so much again for your time.
No, thank you. Happy to be back. I see we have a few questions in the chat.
Yes, they're
Yes.
loading them up.
Uh-huh. We want them to keep coming. But before we do, I definitely want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit more about how our guests can slay the dragon of imposter syndrome. What are some tips and tricks that you can offer?
Tongue twister, I see. So as I think about things, I think there are 5 things that I tried or consistently try to apply as, I go through each and every day, and I feel that dragon, as you call it, coming over me. The first thing I had to learn was to really celebrate my authentic self. Um, I had to stand in the mirror and take a look at myself and tell myself the things that I loved about me, talk to myself about the strengths that I have and what I bring to the table. And instead of feeling as if, man, I'm the only woman or the only African American in the room, celebrate. I had to celebrate that because I bring a different perspective, right? I had to look at it moving from being a curse and turning into a blessing. I thought I often think back to that Sesame Street song. I don't know, this might be showing my age, but there's a song that goes, because being different is being great.
Mhm.
And so I had to embrace that I was different and find my voice, right? And use my voice with intention and with kindness. And so celebrating my authentic self is one of them. Two, I think a lot of people might already do this. Every time you have an accomplishment, every time a new idea that you come up with is heard, implemented, or complimented by someone, make a note of it. Take a sticky, right? Write it down, put it around your laptop, around your desk, around the mirror in your bathroom. Make it a visual reminder that, hey, you've actually done this before. You actually do have the skills to make this work. And really understanding, I had to understand what my superpowers were, right? What are the top 3 things that really make me um, what I call exceptional? What do I bring to the table? And so those days when I feel as if, man, I don't know enough about this topic, or this is a really complex issue, I have to think back of, wait a minute, I've solved complex issues before. How did I do that? Right? Who do I need to have in my corner to be able to do this? What's my superpower? Oh, yeah, I'm great at building relationships, or I'm great at problem solving. So let's go ahead and use those skills. I also had to recognize what were my triggers. And this is really important because your past will come back to haunt you the same way you can remember all these great accomplishments. I would go back to that college moment where I wasn't good enough. Who do you think you are? You're not good enough to fulfill this role, this leadership role. You're not good enough to run this program. And so you have to understand the things that are going to trigger you. And for me, it was things that I didn't know, people that I didn't know, and people who knew more than me with something that I should know. Right. And
Understood.
so, yeah, yeah. And really understanding that, okay, this is what's happening and this is what's causing me to feel that way. And instead of dwelling on that, asking myself, what steps do you need to take to know? What steps do you need to take to find out who you need to talk to? And let's have conversations with the person who knows more than you so that they can teach you what they know. So really understanding those triggers. Very quickly, phoning a friend, right? ET phone home.
Mhm.
Um, when you're feeling that you are not in the right space, talk to a friend, someone who, a really good one, right? That you feel comfortable being vulnerable with. Because let me tell you, this is not a topic, especially for Black women, that we just pick up the phone and call anyone, or we tell our boss, hey, I got imposter syndrome today. I need your help. It doesn't work like that. So find someone that you're comfortable with being vulnerable, and have them remind you of who you are and how great you are. Because remember, sometimes what's interesting about the human brain is no matter how much you believe in yourself, if someone else believes in you, it matters more.
Ebonei, question for you. So, and I'm glad you brought up this point about calling. What it seems probably over the last couple of years, maybe a year or two, it seems that people are starting to address imposter syndrome. Is this something that you've seen over the last 2 years, or has it been something people have been addressing longer, or does it? Does what it seem like to me, is that correct? And if so, what's the impetus? Why do you feel that people are now addressing this and understanding and trying to conquer it?
Sure. So you asked two questions. One, how long has this been sort of out in the open and addressed? And then, why do you think there's so much of a great emphasis on that? So yes, it's been out for about a couple of years, and there are numerous TED Talks, numerous blogs, numerous podcasts that cover the topic. So, quick Google search, and there's even a quiz. So by the way, there's different types of imposter syndrome, and we don't have time to do all of them on this call.
Where can they find the quiz?
I'll make sure to send you as well as the audience the link.
Okay.
After the call, so we can post it on social media. But there's different types of imposter syndrome. With that said, I think there's been also a heavy emphasis with what's happened culturally with Blacks in the past, couple of decades. And I think organizations are now focused on diversity and inclusion and making sure that there's a culture shift, right? Of understanding that the more diverse and inclusive we are as a people, as an organization, as a team, the more diverse our solutions, well, in my case, our solutions are with our clients. And the more we learn about and we change culture. And so I think that change in culture, that drive to be more inclusive, equates to understanding what are some of the blockers, what are some of the challenges that, people who are diverse or underrepresented face, and how can we address that so that we can start to see a shift of more diverse individuals in higher leadership positions or continuing up in their career path.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
That is stellar. I think you have one more for us. I think you gave 4 so far.
I do. The last one really is recognizing the things that you love and you're passionate about when it comes to your work, especially if you're feeling imposter syndrome in the workplace, because trust me, you can feel imposter syndrome in relationships too, but that's a whole nother conversation. We'll save that one for a different show. But really recognizing the things you love and you're passionate about, and understanding that it's okay to turn down those opportunities, because sometimes we want to excel in our careers, and sometimes we're being asked to take on opportunities that we know aren't a great fit for us, but we do that anyway. And the imposter syndrome is greater because we're not passionate about it, so it doesn't help us to build up that perseverance and the grit that's required to move on. And then we don't really know or connect to it. So being connected, anything that excites us, even if it's intimidating, the less unafraid we are of it.
I love that. So let's take a moment to gather some of these amazing questions that are pouring in. Thank you all for them. Lee, you want to take the one from Nefertiti? We'll put them on the screen so that you can see it. So Nefertiti's question says, how has your experience with imposter syndrome influenced you as a leader, whether or not you were in a supervisory role? Thank you for that question.
Wow, that's a great one. And I'm reading through, so many of your comments, Nefertiti. So I do appreciate, your candor as well as your question. So I would say the first thing is that it really inspired me, even before I became a leader, to be more curious, to be more cognizant of the people that I work with and how they might feel about their role and what kind of support would they need that they're not telling me. So instead of waiting for somebody to come and say, well, Ebonei, I don't understand this, or I'm struggling, I would be more proactive towards them. And I would say, I understand this is a new role for you, or welcome to the team. What are some of the blockers that you'll think you're experiencing? What are some of the tools or resources that I can help prepare you for? So that empathy and I think emotional intelligence in me was built up because I knew if I felt that way, chances are that person would potentially feel that way as well. So also making sure that the people who worked for me knew exactly what I needed and how to go about getting what I needed and packaging what I needed. So it's really about more building and continually building their confidence to perform and to continually do their work because I know how easy it is to doubt ourselves, which then impacts our effectiveness to really get the work done.
Hmm. Great question. I see the question from Mashika. Says, my sister-in-law has been in IT for 30 plus years, and she has spoken of being constantly undermined. Could that be a contributor to imposter syndrome?
Yes. Yes. So remember when I talked about documenting every time your idea is heard or implemented, that is one of the things that would help to see you through imposter syndrome. Well, your sister's in the opposite case, right? It seems as if maybe things that she's recommending, projects that she's working on, she's constantly being undermined in the workplace. And therefore, that additionally adds to the level of self-doubt that occurs. So anytime it's time for her to potentially try something new, and even if she has a great idea, she's going to think twice. She's going to second guess herself. She's going to wonder, well, if people keep undermining me, do I belong in this role?
Hmm.
So it is definitely a contributor to imposter syndrome. So later on, I want to talk about companies, IT companies, and how they play a part, right? They play their people that we work with, how all of them play a part in imposter syndrome from causing it or adding to it to taking it away.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Manisha, for that.
So
Is,
let's actually go ahead, Lee.
I was say, is there a way? I know, there's a major move in a lot of areas to get more young girls and young women, young ladies in STEM and in technology. Is there a way to incorporate, helping them cope with imposter syndrome, or is there a way to help keep them from falling into that and having that overtake them? Is there something that they should be learning, or we should be teaching them or talking to them about? And if so, what is that? Or
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not just one thing, but what are some of those things?
It's interesting. I think holistically, as humans, we are going to doubt ourselves at one point or the other. I think that imposter syndrome really is about when you do doubt yourself, what happens next, right? Does it stress you out? Are you worried? And are you not able to perform? Because some people can doubt and recover like this.
Hmm.
And so, for our young people who are or want to take an interest in STEM, I do think, Lee, because you bring up a fantastic point that I haven't thought about. I do think we need to introduce that concept of imposter syndrome, even if you call it something different, like self-doubt. Do you have a sense or a feeling of not belonging here? And help a STEM individual understand that they're going to face certain blockers and challenges in a workforce of individuals that, although they respect our culture, are not necessarily a part of it. And so teaching them how to deal with those moments before they even get there is really what's imperative and is really going to put them in the right mindset of perseverance and grit once they do get into those IT roles.
I love that, especially when it comes to advocating to youth at a very young age. I think about how I got into STEM, and it was when I was 5 and 6 years old, and having that exposure. But recognizing like what you started with, which was sometimes when you're the only face in the room, having the ability to work through those things are not only a nice to have, but they're a necessity. But I wanted to go back to what you said in terms of just the IT space. But if you were given the ears of the leaders within the IT technology space who employ Black women, what advice would you give them to help them overcome imposter syndrome?
Oh, let me tell you why I love that question. When you go out there and you take a look at imposter syndrome and what people are doing to overcome it, it focuses more on the individual, right? Internally, what do they need to do? So the 5 areas that I talked about in terms of overcoming it. But no one, at least not that I've seen so far, is taking a look at placing some of that onus, some of that responsibility on the companies that we work to address it. And so, I had 5 things for internally addressing it, and I have 5 things. This is my message to IT organizations that employ underrepresented minorities, Blacks, and Black women. And the first thing is, and I'm going to keep going back to it, have faith in us. There's statistics that show that companies, when they hire, do not have faith for Black women specifically to be able to perform an IT role or function or code. So as an organization, you really need to emphasize that you believe in our ability or potential for us to perform. PricewaterhouseCoopers measured me by my accomplishments, right? And my capacity to conquer IT skills and challenges, not by my SAT scores. A lot of organizations will have you take a technical test. And yes, we want, we want our folks to pass those technical tests, but also take a look at those scores and their potential. What have they done in the past? What's the capacity for them to learn? The second thing is, when you are recruiting us, Black women, and considering us for leadership roles, you really need to put programs in place to help interviewers recognize that there may be bias, right? As they're reviewing people's resumes, perform interviews, and assign us tasks, and meaning the person being interviewed, give us feedback. I think it's really important for us to understand where the areas that we are well qualified in, and what areas do we need to actually work on, because that's going to address some of the doubts that we may have that overall this might not be right for us.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing is the power of imagination. And companies need to really help Black women to imagine a future at their company.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so key. And the pivotal role, right? What is the role that you are going to play in that company while you're changing, you're out there changing the world? How am I going to do that? And really start to hone in on the big C word, culture, right? How am I going to build a culture of people to support this? Give us pets. Laughing, not dogs or cats. I like to call pets give us the right people that are going to help us, the right education that's going to help us, and the right technology or tools that's going to help us overcome that imposter syndrome.
You bring up a good point. And I think it happens. You know, Sherelle talked about an organization I helped co-found almost 2 years ago called The Table. And when we have new companies that come in, or we're talking to companies that are joining our movement, a number of them talk about the fact that they have a hard time. They may actually be hiring more and more African Americans, but they're not able to keep them.
That's right.
How important is it that they do not just change the culture, but talk about where they see that person going and helping that person envision why they should stay there.
That's that I will tell you, Lee, that's important to help them envision their future and helping them to stay there. But I think there are some other fundamental areas outside of
Hmm.
that cause them to leave. And I will tell you, the IT culture is a rat race.
Hmm.
It's a lot of time and effort. I find that African American people are and granted, I don't want to say more family oriented, but there's a need to balance life uh,
Hmm.
with work more. And I think the way that we handle stress, given our history, is a little different too. And so I find more African Americans leave for those reasons, as compared to knowing, there's a clear path. And so as an organization, I think we need to learn to show them the path, and then how can they balance, how can they integrate their lives without feeling like, I'm working 50, 60 hours a week, right? How can I get that back down to 40 so that I
Hmm.
can really balance, the rest of the things that are important to me and
Okay.
still thrive in the IT environment?
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Two other things really quickly.
Mhm.
Organizations need to create a feeling of belonging and acceptance.
Hmm.
Um, and really emphasize how important that is. And so if an organization hasn't already made inclusion a natural part of how the organization operates, maybe even connecting reward to how inclusive and diverse teams are, that's really important. So I see that we reward, people that are innovative, with technical ideas, and we reward people that sell. But we also need to reward those teams and efforts that that include more diversity and include more inclusion.
Hmm.
Yeah. Last but not least, I need more people that look like me.
Hmm.
But
Right.
what's interesting is sometimes it's going to start with me, right? Sometimes I'm going to be that to other people, and so I don't want that to stop, African Americans and women, from, taking on those roles because there's nobody there.
Hmm.
Sometimes we need to be the trailblazers. But let me tell you, if I can see a similar face of success, I think about that could be me, right?
That's
And
right.
so, yeah. So there's my 5 tips for IT organizations and helping us to work through imposter syndrome.
Okay. Are you familiar with an organization called ITSMF?
ITSMF. I am not. Tell me more.
ITSMF.
Tell me more.
It's their senior technology, so the CIOs and high level um, IT folks, people of color. It's an
Mhm.
organization that they founded. So I mean, my wife worked IT at a large company.
Okay.
She was chief of staff for the CIO. So I got a chance to meet, like years ago, the CIO for Microsoft was an African American guy. The CIO for Deloitte Global in U.S., Larry Quinlan, he lives in Florida. Just recently retired. Was the CIO. So there's this organization, and all of them come together, and they have cohorts where they start mentoring and sponsoring younger folks that are in IT to help, and men and women, and there are a lot of women that are part of it to help them move up. And from time to time, they hire each other. They poach them from different companies. So it's just a really interesting organization. I wasn't sure if you'd heard of it or not, but that's probably it's a really good organization to
I
get involved.
had not, but I'm thrilled to hear, what they're doing. just
Mhm.
in terms of, promoting more diversity in the upper echelons of the organizations. And so, yeah, if there's an opportunity to share a link to that organization with myself and the audience here or after the show on social media, please do. And if there's
Yeah.
also an opportunity to be a part of that, I would love to volunteer my time.
Okay, that's something I can help you. I can help connect you with that offline, but I'll look to see if there's a link to that we can share.
That is phenomenal. And we are coming close to time, believe it
No
or
way.
not.
Sure are.
Wow, that was
But before we recap, first of all, we thank you so much for your time and thank you so much for sharing your expertise as well as your experience with imposter syndrome and just in general as an amazing woman with grit. So we salute and commend you for continuing to press forward. Do you have any final remarks? And please also tell our viewers how they can connect with you and engage with you after the show if they decide that they want to.
Well, let me tell you, time has gone by really fast, and it's really been my pleasure to be on the show. And I appreciate the audience participation and the questions. When I think about imposter syndrome, final words, we can allow it to follow us around like a shadow, right? But we don't have to let it outshine what we're truly capable of. It is not something that you just overcome overnight. It's something that you continue to work on as you go through this thing called life. And so the mind is this powerful thing, right? It's influential, and what we intentionally say to ourselves internally and expose the mind to externally, it really has this opportunity to really transform us into what I like to call phenomenal Black women in IT that we were meant to be. So, um, once again, thank you so much for having me. I want to give a shout out of thanks to my mom, my son, and several work colleagues, and my partner in crime, Michael, for supporting me through those times. And of course, IBM, right? I mean, without IBM and PricewaterhouseCoopers, I wouldn't have had opportunity upon opportunity to really reach my career dreams. And so my ability or your belief in me as IBM's belief in me, really helps me to remain inspired and to inspire others to give my best every day. But you can always connect with me via email
Yes.
or LinkedIn if you want to put those into the chat um, or put them on the screen. Great, perfect. Please reach out. I would love to hear from you. Before I forget, we are hiring. I got to put in a plug
Yeah.
for
All
IBM,
right.
right?
Do it. Let's
um,
tell
I'll
people how they can get on with IBM.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. You want to come on board and seek me out. Send me an email or a message and let me know if you decide to apply. I work specifically with early professionals, so those who are graduating from college, looking for entry level positions, or juniors in college that are looking for an internship. However, we do have all types of roles, experienced hire roles too. So I'll have Sherelle include the link to our IBM Jobs portal.
Yep. It's
However,
already there in the
all right. Is it in the chat?
mhm.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So feel free, yeah, feel free everyone to reach out if you have any additional questions. I look forward to hearing from you.
So, quick question for you. What do you do for fun?
Oh, what do I do for fun? What
Yes.
don't I do for fun? So two things I think are at my core. One, I love to travel.
Okay.
And if you can put me in a country every week, I would be in a country every week. So my next trip is coming up to Dubai and for Thanksgiving. 12
Ooh.
wonderful days in Dubai,
Nice.
my name on it.
Are you taking
So
your son?
I wish I was taking my son, but my
Okay.
son, I rubbed off on him a little bit. He's a little bit of a workaholic, so he can't get
Okay.
away for so long.
Okay. Gotcha.
But,
Gotcha. I have some friends that just came back from Dubai.
did you? Oh, so I'm gonna have to talk to you, and you have to share some tips. Um,
Yes.
yeah, from
Yeah.
your friends in terms of where they went and what
Hmm.
they did. But yeah,
Yep.
besides that, I love running. I love the outdoors, and I love serving other people. I work on the the condominium board. I'm a director. And my building used to be predominantly a 55 plus building. And
Okay.
everyone's like, E, why are you moving there? And I'm like, I love people that are mature. It's it's great. No college parties. What are you talking about? I'm in the right place. So being of service to them in
Mhm.
my community is really where my heart lies. And so yeah, that's what I do for fun.
All right. Well, sounds good. Well, this has been my pleasure to get to know you, and thank you for sharing with our audience. We just look forward to possibly even having you back one day as you continue
Mhm.
to ascend and do great things.
Absolutely.
We really love to have you back.
Well, thank you, and blessings, continued blessings to you both on the show. You're really making a tremendous impact in our Black community and ensuring that the voices of women are heard because we all, in some way, shape, or the other, experience the same emotions and in certain cases, the same experiences on our journey. And it helps to know that we're not alone. So
Mhm.
thank you for having this show. It's truly making a difference and a significant impact.
Well, thank you for that and encouraging us.
Yes,
Sherelle,
thank you.
Sherelle and I've been crazy the last few months just with life and everything. So we're happy to be back, and
Yep,
you're our welcome back gift
that's
Oh,
right.
to our
That's
to
right.
our community.
And what a way to start, or what a way to start season 4. We've been doing this 2 years now as well. Just amazing, amazing conversation. It's so well needed. I just want to give a quick bite-sized nugget, a couple nuggets that we heard tonight, but that's no excuse for not sharing and listening to this again in its entirety. There's just so much wisdom that Ebonei has left for us. So we definitely want to make sure that you have an opportunity to go back and look through it again. But celebrate your authentic self and don't be afraid or ashamed to love on yourself. Go in the mirror and affirm yourself. Accentuate your strengths and your positives. Recognize that you bring sometimes a different perspective to the table. So, one of the things that was mentioned was to find your voice and use your voice with intention. And I love the fact that you mentioned to do so with intention. So, not just talking for the sake of talking, but allowing your words to have meat and meaning. Make a note of the positive feedback that you receive from others as a reminder of what you're capable of if you find yourself in that space of imposter syndrome. Know what your superpowers are. So, to thine own self be true, but also to walk in that truth. What are the top 3 things that you bring to the table? Know those things better than anyone else or anyone else that could tell you, and lean into those things. Understand what your triggers are, and then take the next step to create action steps to overcome them. Right. So now we're not just falling into imposter syndrome and being triggered, but we're taking the steps to recognize them and being able to do something about it. Talk to a good friend that you feel comfortable being vulnerable with. And I love, love, love the fact that you talked about that second part about being the aspect of being vulnerable and having that safe place that you can go and talk to and be able to confide in a friend so that that person can help you through it. Because there's so much that can be resolved just in the ability to talk and be able to open up and be able to express that. Recognize the things you love and that you're passionate about, but also be okay with turning away from things that are not a good fit. So don't take on everything just for the sake of taking it all, because then it just heightens that imposter syndrome, right? But then also making sure that people who work for you know what they need from you. So she talked about the nature of how IT companies can support African American women who may be struggling with or working through imposter syndrome. And then also recognize that for those companies to have faith in us to perform. So the ability is not only just to be on the team, but to give those complex and challenging assignments to them and then give them the space to succeed. Assess based on the capability to perform, put programs in place to address biases, which is a very, very big one, not just for the front end, but also to the back end, and even tying it to managerial metrics, right? Be able to imagine a future within the company. So we need to be able to see ourselves not only in the beginning, in the middle, but also in the end. Identify how to build a culture to help individuals overcome imposter syndrome. And then I love that acronym that you gave, PET, which is making sure that companies and organizations address people, education, as well as the technology and tools or resources that they need to succeed. And then I love just again that authentic truth that you gave. Imposter syndrome doesn't go away overnight, right? It's something that we learn to deal with, we learn to overcome over time. So give yourself patience and time to work through it with yourself, but don't let it outshine you. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for your time tonight, Ebonei. It's been great to have you, and we're just so excited to see you continue to succeed and progress as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Take care, Ebonei. Ebonei.
Yes, so you guys heard it here. Feel free as you all, and again, we normally get company, we normally get questions after. Feel free to leave those in the chat, and we will be sure to get them back over to Ebonei. But you know where to find us. Share this with someone that you believe can benefit from this. There's more than enough people, over half have dealt with this in some place and time in their life. So be sure to not just take it on in, but also to share it. And hopefully you took some notes as well. But if there isn't anything else, we're going to say see you next week here on Women with Grit. Lee,
That's
you
right.
want to close us out?
Hey, don't forget IBM is hiring. So, you're trying to level up. All you future college grads, I think I heard something about juniors in college and
Yep.
up.
Juniors in college and seniors that are getting ready to graduate next year, May.
Next year. Hey, you have kids. Hey, you want them off the payroll. There you go.
That's right.
I love it, Lee. You cracked me up.
Hey, we want to thank the table. Check out the website, www.thetableaction.com, www.thetableaction.com. Check out Vision Strategy Management. Sherelle's just been kicking butt. I don't know what all she's got going on. So check out our website, visionstrategymanagement.com. Don't forget, she's going to help you execute. So don't come to her unless you're ready to execute. Also, keep in mind that now is the time to develop your personal strategy for next year. Companies do it now; they don't wait till January. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and start your personal strategy right now. Work on your budget, work on your investments, work on your goals, all the stuff you want to do with your family. This is the time to do it. If you need help, check out Sherelle Lands and Vision Strategy Management. Thank you all. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for waiting on us. We know it's been a minute. We've had all kind of stuff going on. One thing I have is a college freshman now, so I've been traveling and seeing him play football games and all that stuff. So we're getting it back together now. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Take care.